Iran could cut off its oil supplies to Europe as early as next week. An Iranian MP has signalled when they could flick the switch, with Parliament now preparing to debate it on Sunday. It's to preempt the EU embargo set to start in July, which is designed to force Iran into talks over its nuclear work. Tehran's repeatedly, of course, said in recent weeks that it is ready to do just that, but the US now says it first wants Iran to prove its atomic program is peaceful. UN nuclear inspectors are due there in the coming days to try and work that out. Now, waiting to talk to us in New York is Sassan Gahrami. He's from SGH Macro Advisors, which is a global policy and economic consultancy. Sassan, good to see you tonight. Where should we start then? Iran is trying to take the bull by the horns here, it looks like, doesn't it? But can it afford, at the end of the day, really, to lose 6 months' oil revenue from Europe?
Yeah, hi, Kevin. Thank you very much for having me back on. I think that's exactly the question here. And the calculus from Iran's perspective is going to be, if they preempt by cutting exports before the July 1st date that the EU has set for cutting the exports, and Iran preemptively cuts its 300,000-400,000 barrels worth of exports to the EU, will it be able to drive prices up enough by doing that to offset for that? And so there is a chance that they might make that calculus, and they may decide to do that anyways. I would not rule it out, Kevin, because right now what is going on with Iran is that there is an existential threat to the government, given everything that's happening in the local Iranian economy, and they are very desperate right now.
So you think they'll fight if cornered? OK, I mean, Tehran's saying Europe has more to lose from the oil embargo than Iran. Do you see it that way?
Well, no. Ultimately, Iran clearly has more to lose by not just the European oil embargo, but even more importantly, the embargo on the financial institutions and the central bank, which has really started here in Washington, in the U.S., and has really hampered Iran's ability to conduct financial transactions. They have managed to work around that with China and with India right now, but that has made a huge dent. It's caused a massive panic in the Iranian economy. The official rate for the currency is down. They just devalued by 8%, but it's dropped 40% in the last month, and this is before the sanctions have even come in. So what is happening in Iran is a fundamental threat, an existential threat to the regime, to the Islamic Republic regime. And quite frankly, from the U.S. perspective, I don't think there's a lot of hope that these sanctions will actually get Iran to stop its nuclear program. I think the real unwritten objective here is, quite frankly, I'm going to call it by a different name, but it's regime change ultimately. They want to put as much pressure as they can on this government.
If this did all kick off, one country, of course, looking on very closely is Israel. I mean, recently Israeli intelligence reportedly saying that Iran's threats of attack retaliation are a bluff, saying the consequences wouldn't be as catastrophic as widely believed. Why do you think Israel's saying that?
Well, it's very much in Israel's interest to, play the bad cop. They call this the good cop, bad cop act between the U.S. and Israel. And Israel obviously has a lot more to lose than the U.S., and so it does feel much more cornered. So there is a very real threat. I'm not diminishing their very real desire to rattle the cage and scare the Iranians as much as they can, but part of this is also in order to keep the heat on the Iranians as much as they can, and say, look, we're not scared, and that actually the military strike by Israel is something that you should take seriously and should not take off the table, hence come to the negotiating table. Quite frankly, as far as Israel's military capabilities, there is an active debate on how much damage they could do at this point, especially given that Iran has now put some of its enrichment facilities deep underground. The Fordo facility is very deep underground, and so Israel increasingly needs the U.S. on its side from a military perspective.
Thanks for being on the program tonight, Sassan. Sassan Gahrami from SGH Macro Advisors, live from New York. Appreciated.